Wild Robot, as I said, the latest feature film from DreamWorks, who is just an animation factory. They pump out a lot of films each and every year. But Chris Sanders is a very, very well respected animated director. He's been working in the industry for a number of decades now. If you don't know his name, he is most known for directing the animated Lilo and Stitch movie that came out in
Yeah.
2002. He also made How to Train Your Dragon in 2010, as well as The Croods. And so he's been working with DreamWorks for a number of years now. Again, very, very veteran filmmaker stepping up to make this brand new feature film. But this is also interesting because this kind of marks the end of an era for DreamWorks, because this will be the last DreamWorks animated feature film that's going to be produced entirely in-house by DreamWorks. From here on out, they're going to be co-producing their movies with other outside vendors and outside studios, just due to tough economic times, abilities to lower production costs, all sorts of financial reasonings behind that. But this is going to be the last movie that they ultimately produce entirely in-house. And so everything coming out from the future of DreamWorks, including your very, very well-known franchises like Shrek, and if they do another How to Train Your Dragon, those are going to be produced by other studios in conjunction, in collaboration with DreamWorks. But ultimately, The Wild Robot is something that's receiving a lot of critical acclaim. It's doing really, really well at the box office. Had a pretty big hold for the past 2 or 3 weeks or so. It was number 2 at the box office this past weekend, and it was like its 4th weekend. So it's doing tremendously well on that front. But we got a chance to check out this movie over the course of the past few weeks. And so with all of that out of the way, man, I will pass it to you. What did you think about this brand new film, The Wild Robot?
The Wild Robot was on my, I think, top 10 most anticipated, fall films that we have here. I think the trailer was amazing. DreamWorks, they cook when they need to, and animation has been really competitive. We talked about it. Everything's just not all Disney and Pixar right now. Like DreamWorks has trying to have its moments. Sony's been having all these other studios are having its moment. I was like, DreamWorks, now's your time. Step in and do something. And so again, I was very super excited to see this movie. And The Wild Robot, let me tell you, I love this movie. I do. It is everything I think that I was hoping that it would be. I was pleasantly not even surprised, but just welcomed with so much just joy and energy to see that this film was as good as it is. I love this movie. It is so heartfelt. It is beautiful. It is a fun ride. This film is it's funny because the main story is actually pretty simple, right? It's about finding found family and motherhood. Those are like the two, like, okay, those are our base themes of what this film is about. But once you get into the nitty-gritty of the movie, there's actually so many themes in here that I don't even think people will pick up on or register on unless you're really and seriously paying attention. This movie is it. It's doing things where, of course, kids are gonna love it, but from an adult perspective, there's things in here that's like that talk about war, that talk about what it looks like to work together in the midst of chaos and war, and what it means if we don't work together with the world. And like there's some big implications I think this movie can discuss, and I really like it for that, because we don't have to talk about those things, and they decided, I think, to do that again on such a subtle level. But again, if you're paying attention, I think you can do that. It's funny. People were crying. I mean, this is easily a tearjerker if you don't watch yourself. The theater was silent. All you heard was sniffles and tissues coming out. And it is beautiful. The paint brush strokes on the screen are so vivid. And there's certain moments where there's action happening where you're like, man, how are they going to do it? And they do it so clean and flawlessly, and it's so clear, but also beautiful and unlike anything you've really ever seen before, but with the inspiration of other things, right? Like at the base of it, this movie is actually very Iron Giant. That's like literally what it is. It's so much Iron Giant in this film, but it takes some of those concepts and ideas and translates them to just a different means of what technology is, and what it means to maybe even be an outcast, and like again finding motherhood in places people don't expect you to, and being bullied. And it was just so much in this movie I'm glad they tackled. I had a blast with this film. I think it's beautiful. I think it's definitely going to be like one of the contenders when Academy Award season rolls around. I think Inside Out 2 is going to have some competition out here, but man, I really thoroughly enjoyed this film, man, and I can't wait for more people to see it. I've been like shouting this movie, I think, to the rooftops. People are like, what should I see? I'm like, go see The Wild Robot. It's like one of the ones I think you really can't lose seeing it. I haven't seen anybody dislike this film, so I enjoyed it, and I hope other people will too.
Well, you just ran into your first one. I don't know what exactly happened here, but The Wild Robot is just okay to me. I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought that I would, and I think a lot of people are certainly loving the movie. It's receiving a lot of attention and critical acclaim, probably deservedly so. But for me, the movie just doesn't. I don't know if it doesn't really hit just certain registers that I thought it would, or what it really is about it. But it's not a movie that resonates with me as much as I just expected it to. I do
Mm-hmm.
think that I've seen the story before. That's kind of a piece of it, and I think that I was expecting maybe something a little bit more original. And the comps are obviously there. Iron Giant, but also Wally is there, and Chris Sanders has also made no bones about how influenced and inspired he was by old Disney animated classics, but also by the works of Hayao Miyazaki. You can see all that stuff here, and I think in terms of executing upon those ideas, really, really well done. But I do think that the story is not unfamiliar. We've examined a lot of topics like this before. You know, whether it's found family, motherhood. There's also stuff about climate change. Technology is obviously a big piece of it as well. It's examining a lot. But I didn't necessarily find any of the commentary behind that stuff to be all that unique per se to the story. And I think that my experience watching it was very pleasant within the first, I would say, 30 minutes. Like I was really, really into it. I really, really loved it. I thought the voice acting was incredible. They got some obviously very talented people behind this, like Lupita and Pedro, of course. But then the third act, I don't know what it was. Just it lost me. I think the story lost
Mm-hmm.
me, and the tears and the moments of emotion just didn't land with me. I didn't really feel all that emotional towards it by the end of it. I thought it was good. I thought it was well executed. Everything in the movie is well executed, but it didn't sweep over me in a really overwhelming sense that I thought that it would, like some animated films really know how to do. Even when I go back and look at a movie like Iron Giant, I just recently watched that like in the past 3 or so months,
Ooh, I feel
really,
you.
really hits me every single time. Like the end
Every
of it is
time.
just like a gut punch. And I just never got that feeling in this movie. But I don't want to yuck on anybody's yum. Again, clearly a lot of people like this. It just didn't really work for me. I just thought that it was okay. It was just like a
Mm-hmm.
standard, fine animated feature film, but a lot of people do love it, and it's clearly presenting itself to be one of the front runners in contention for best animated feature films of the year, and certainly a lot of awards buzz, especially compared to some of the some of the other things that have come out. And I will say I do think that the aspect of it that I enjoy the most is how throwback it feels, because I did feel
Mm.
that when I first started to watch it, like within again those first like 30 minutes, it felt like, oh, this feels like my childhood. This feels like it's very much rooted in like a former style of filmmaking that we don't really see that much all that often anymore. It felt like it was
Mm-hmm.
coming out of the 90s, early 2000s. But again, somewhere along the way, it just kind of lost me. I don't know. It just didn't hit me. It just didn't really work for me. So I thought it was just like an okay film, but it will certainly be in the conversation of best films. I think for a lot of people of the year, and then of course like the awards race right now for best animated feature film come Oscar time. But we'll ultimately have to see how that all shapes out over the course of the next few months. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on The Wild Robot. If you've checked out this movie in theaters, definitely hit us up and let us know what you think.